hope that you've had a good summer with lots of rowing, as well as some time for yourselves. I'm Kirsten Feldman. I've been the board chair of U.S. Rowing for a year and a half now. I'm also proud to be the Northeast Regional Representative on the board. I enjoyed speaking to many of you during the Northeast election last January, and I thank you for your vote of support. For those not in the Northeast region, let me introduce myself. I grew up in Canada as a competitive swimmer and turned into a rower at the Argonaut Rowing Club in Toronto and rowed at the University of Western Ontario before moving to New York City to work on Wall Street. I retired as an investment banker and have been a nonprofit board member in the environmental and competitive sports arena. More recently, though, I was a parent of the captain of the 2021 Dartmouth women's rowing team, and I currently compete as a master's rower at the GMS Rowing Center in Connecticut, where I now live. The mission of U.S. Rowing, per our bylaws, is to steward, strengthen, and grow American rowing by championing performance and igniting new passion for the sport. In addition to being the national governing body of rowing, or the NGB, U.S. Rowing is essentially a member organization that serves our members and our athletes. Our goal as a board is to ensure that U.S. Rowing achieves excellence as an organization and operates with transparency so that you, our stakeholders, have a clear understanding of how we operate, where we have challenges that we're working on, and how you can all help as well. My election process in the Northeast region last January was invaluable to me, as I had the privilege of speaking with many of you, especially coaches at all levels, and I heard your concerns. My father was a swim coach, so I have a good appreciation of the demands and importance of this role. Many of you asked me about the governance structure of U.S. Rowing, so in the spirit of transparency, I want to use my opportunity tonight to explain it. U.S. Rowing is regulated by the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, the USOPC, and the Ted Stevens Act. The Ted Stevens Act was enacted in 1978 to establish the USOPC, set up the national governing bodies, and establish the formal vote of our athletes by mandating that athletes who have competed for the U.S. internationally within the last 10 years, we call them 10-year athletes, comprise a third of the board and all of our major committees. The voice of the athletes is very important in what we do. We operate under legal bylaws, which you can find on our website. And per those bylaws, we have a 12-member board. 4 of us represent the 4 regions and are elected by the organizational members in each region. 4 are athletes who are voted on by the 10-year athletes, and the remaining 4 are called at-large directors, and they're voted on by the full board. And those are designed to bring in specific expertise that we need. The officers, including the board chair, are elected by the directors. Major changes to these bylaws require your approval. And I would say to you that we have a very good board that represents rowing well. In addition to our athletes, we have collegiate and scholastic coaches. We have a number of masters rowers, lawyers, financial experts, and marketing and PR professionals, which give us all the experience we need. There will be elections coming up this winter for 2 seats, one for the Atlantic region, currently held by Steve Cirillo, and the other for an at-large seat. If you're in the Atlantic region, I encourage you to participate and get out and vote. Per the bylaws, the role of the board is to focus on long-term objectives and impacts rather than day-to-day management. That's the role of our CEO and her team. We're charged with setting the policies, establishing the strategic plan and annual budget, and monitoring performance. And also, per the bylaws, we're responsible for hiring, evaluating, and compensating the CEO, and for ensuring that we comply with the USOPC and safe sport policies. Updating our organizational strategic plan will be an important focus of ours this fall. And finally, U.S. Rowing couldn't fulfill its mission without a large number of dedicated volunteers, and we're grateful to all of you. We calculate that there are over 180 people working on our various committees and councils, and I'll describe them. There are board committees that work on our specific responsibilities, such as finance, compensation, nominating, and governance, as well as standing board committees, such as the Athletes Council, which is meeting tonight, the High Performance Committees, and the Inclusion and Community Impact Committee. The U.S. Rowing Foundation is the fundraising arm of U.S. Rowing, and we currently have 44 trustees. Other committees and councils that advise the management include safety, referee, rules, international relations, sports medicine, the grievance panel, the Emerging Leaders Council, masters, and others. But of course, there are many more volunteers in our community that coach, support clubs and athletes, and work at regattas and more. Thank you to all of you that support the sport of rowing. As a small sport, we would not be viable without you. I hope that many of you will engage with US Rowing to help us on our journey to excellence. Join a committee, give us constructive feedback, and get out and vote in the elections for board members. You'll hear about more opportunities to do that tonight. We're here to steward rowing, and that means to serve you. Finally, it's my pleasure to introduce someone that you all know, Amanda Kraus, our CEO, who's charged with managing the day-to-day activities of US Rowing. Amanda rowed at UMass at Amherst, where she captained the team, and then founded and ran Row New York until she was named US Rowing CEO almost 5 years ago. Thank you, Amanda, and over to you.
Thanks, Kirsten. That was a great start. And good evening, everybody. Hello from vacation. I'm well slept and excited to see you all. And like Jenny said, really appreciate you all spending some time with us. I know many of you are coming off of busy spring and/or summer racing seasons and probably trying to unplug a little bit. So it means a lot that you are spending some time and joining us this evening for our annual meeting. I actually really enjoy these meetings because it gives us a chance to tell you all about what we've been up to here at US Rowing, what we're working on, what we're excited about, and just as importantly, to make sure that we're hearing from all of you, get your questions and your feedback. So as Jenny said, we're going to get through this tonight, our presentations, and then make sure we have time to hear from all of you at the end. I want to start by echoing, excuse me, what Kirsten said. And send a really big thank you to our volunteers. We have a wonderful board of directors, US Rowing Foundation group of trustees, which is up to 43 people now, I believe. And many people who volunteer with the organization, both on the water and off, are wonderful referees and countless committee members. I will not try to list all of them because I will inevitably miss people. Kirsten reviewed our mission and our vision in her remarks, and my goal really as CEO is to make sure those aren't just words that sit on our website, but instead that I wake up in the morning thinking about, well, like what actions does US Rowing have to take to push the mission and the vision forward? Some of it is direct and it's tangible, and some of it is indirect. And a lot of it is stuff you might not even know as members about. It might not be on your radar. So I thought I'd share a bit of both tonight. I want to start with some of the really tangible, right in front of you ways that US Rowing shows up for our members. And I'm glad we have Sarah McAuliffe. I'll embarrass her for a minute. Those of you who go to regattas have probably seen Sarah at the helm of them. We run great regattas that are super fun and inclusive. They're safe. We work behind the scenes to make sure they're really well run and they're welcoming. If you haven't been to Youth Nationals or to Row Fest, please try to go next year. They're just, and I take zero credit for this. The team just does an incredible job running these. When you think about referees you see at regattas, those are the people that we train and certify so you can count on good officiating. We manage the rules of rowing, so there's consistency and fairness and safety across the board. We, excuse me, we offer affordable and comprehensive insurance, whether that's for individuals or for clubs, really important when you need it. We invest in coach education, so there's a clear standard that's used for safety and quality and integrity within coaching. We provide tools and resources to help keep athletes safe and supported, both on the water and off. And then for athletes who are really chasing that dream to be a part of Team USA, we offer a clear pathway toward the national team, starting with our youngest athletes, our U19 and U23 athletes. We also provide grants and scholarships through United We Row to support athletes and coaches and clubs that are really doing the great work on the ground across this country. And of course, we run U19, U23, the senior team, the para team, and now the beach sprints team for LA 28. That will be a new discipline. So that all falls under Yossi Verdanscott, who is joining us as well this evening. So then there's the work we do behind the scenes with our members in mind, really every step of the way. That you might not know about, which is that we advocate for the sport regionally and nationally, internationally, whether it's with World Rowing, it's USOPC, it's NCAA or lawmakers. We're really making sure that we're at the table and rowing's voice is being heard. We help set the tone for what rowing looks like in this country, and that means pushing for higher standards, more professionalism, more safety, more inclusion across the board. And that's something we're really proud of. We're proud of the sport. We all work here because we love the sport. And when challenges come up, which they inevitably do for everyone, whether it's waterway access or someone starting a new program and needs to write a job description for a coach, we're here to make sure our member organizations have someone they can go to help them navigate that. So we bring in expertise and relationships to support you, whether maybe you're trying to get a visa for an international coach, maybe you're trying to talk to your athletic director to make a case for keeping rowing in your school. We're really happy to step in and work shoulder to shoulder with you on all of those things. So I want to share a little bit about 2024, some highlights and some learnings as we look back. We had our record year for paid membership with 72,600 paid individual members. We had 26 international medals, including for the first time since 1960, a gold in the men's 4 at the Paris Olympics, where the men's 8 also won a bronze medal, and the Para 4 brought home silver. We were super proud of those athletes and their coaches. We launched the United We Row program, which supported athletes and coaches and organizations with $270,000 in scholarships and grants. And then to support our operations, our national team, and our United We Row programs, our team raised $6.2 million in donations, helping us put in more fiscally stable foot forward as an organization and end the year with a surplus, which has allowed us to strengthen our strategic reserve, which is really important. You don't want to be an organization operating with, a few weeks cash on hand. Nobody sleeps when that's the reality. Organizationally, we are stronger than ever. The team is staffed up, they're strong, they're talented, they're passionate about their work, and I consider myself very lucky to call them colleagues. So that's a lot of good news. I'm sure you're waiting for the but. Of course, there's a but. I'm a rower, or not anymore. Used to be, and you're always looking for, well, how do we get better? What can we improve upon? So we learned, I would say, an important lesson in 2024. US Rowing can't do what we're doing alone. We have like big visions of how to make things better and stronger and be more bold and affect change, and everything I just mentioned and everything the team is about to share with you tonight. It all needs to be in multiple ways shaped by you. You're the members. It's your organization. And you have to be given the opportunity to, as I always say, kick the tires, right, on what we're thinking and what we're planning and doing. And sometimes we've gotten that right, and sometimes we haven't. And what we realized for 2024 is that we didn't always give you, as members, the time or space to give us feedback. And sometimes we haven't done a good enough job also of explaining our why for why we're doing things. That happened, for example, with our new coaching certification program. We could have also explained more clearly things like our congressional mandate to use SafeSport and specific background checks to meet USOPC standards and insurance requirements. Things that were very clear in our own minds, but we should have taken the time and given you the space to explain more about why we were doing these things and get your feedback. I'd say that was a hard lesson for us, but it was really important. It taught us that we need to slow down, we need to listen, we need to tell you all this is what we're thinking about and make sure we get feedback from you. And just the way we tell our rowers, be coachable, we need to be coachable too. So in that spirit of being coachable, we're really committed to working more closely with you and hearing from you, incorporating your questions, your feedback, and also your concerns. So an example of that is that we launched in May the new stakeholder engagement initiative, which is called Voices in Rowing. Thank you to so many of you. I see some names on here, people who joined those conversations. And we'll be planning more formal and informal ways to learn from all of you, from forums to surveys, in-person gatherings and opportunities, and new initiatives that Jenny Trace is heading up, like leadership groups for regatta directors, collegiate coaches, etc. And I really encourage you, and I hope you all will join us in that effort. Again, we really want you to be helping to shape the future of US rowing. I firmly believe 4+ years, I guess it is almost 5 at the end of November, that a strong governing body makes rowing better. It's good for rowers, it's good for coaches, it's good for programs, it makes us all stronger. and the benefits grow from there. And we're committed to doing all of this with you. As we look ahead to hosting the LA 28 games, super exciting. Our strategic vision is laid out with what we're calling our gold standards. And you're going to be hearing about that more from the team, a combination of senior team members and board members. The G stands for growth of the sport. The O stands for organizational excellence. The L stands for lasting and well-defined member value. And the D is a drive for excellence on the world stage. Like I said, we have board representatives here and we have team members here tonight to tell you more about what this means for our sport and for you as members. And before handing it off, I'll just thank you all once again. I know a lot of you, I've met so many of you. It's fun to see so many familiar faces and names on this Zoom. It's always exciting to meet new members too. The team is really accessible. We're really, really excited about what we're doing and what we want to build together. And so I thank you again. And then I'm going to pass this off to our Midwest regional representative on the board, Marnie Stahl, who will be presenting with our Chief Sport Officer, Tom Rooks, who many of you already know as well. So handing it off to you all now, and thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. That was great. Good to see all of you here taking your time during the summer. As somebody just pointed out, it's the first American football game is apparently happening. So some people are also very excited. So it's good to see everybody here. What I would like to talk about is the growth of our sport. And I loved the video that started. The video that started really, to me, defines the growth of our sport and highlights where we are and where we can go. I've been involved in the sport since I was a little freshman in high school, and I got a little piece of paper, right? And that's how growth of the sport, to me, also starts. And then all of the projects that we are doing, I think of one of the regional members here in the Central Region, Evanston Township. They started 4 years ago with about 15 to 20 student athletes out of a high school that didn't have rowing, didn't have equipment. The community around Evanston looked at them, helped them out, and they're going to be starting with 80 to 100 young athletes this fall. No student athlete pays, and they were a recipient of one of our United We Row and Youth Power 20 grants. And that to me just emphasizes all of the things we are doing for the growth of our sport and bringing rowing of all disciplines, whether it's the ergs you see on the screen, beach sprints, the coastal, flatwater, para, all of it to places that have it and how we can continue to grow it in those spaces, and then places that don't have necessarily accessibility and what kind of disciplines of rowing can we bring to them. So I'm very excited about everything that we have going on in this space. And as everybody said, like, feedback is fantastic. So I want to turn it over to Tom to talk more about it. And thank you again for everything you are doing for our sport. I know sometimes it's thankless. So for what you're doing and those that you're representing, thank you so very much. Tom?
Thanks, Marnie. My name is Tom Rooks. I've met many of you, but in case I haven't, I've been rowing since high school. Go Braves, Boone Braves, Orlando, Florida. And I met my wife rowing. We were both lightweights back then at UCF, Go Knights. And started coaching when I was 17 and only stopped when September 11th made my law enforcement side of my life very busy. Ended up serving 22 years in active duty in the Coast Guard and coached wherever I could. And then retired to become the director of rowing at the Williamsburg Boat Club. So I've had the pleasure of wearing just about every hat, from fundraiser to guidance counselor to emotional support coach to occasionally actually coaching the rowing. I want to say thanks to all of you for being here. Every time we have a meeting like this, what I remind myself is none of you got here on accident on a Thursday night at 7:30 p.m., right? Or at 8 p.m. You're here because you're passionate. You're here because you care. And for that, in whatever capacity you participate in the sport, thanks. I always say, rowing is this gift. It's this ultimate privilege, right? All of us probably have at least one moment, if not many, that we look back and say, wow, I was forever changed by that. I'm forever changed by surviving 2K erg tests as far as my resilience. And I'm also forever changed by the teamwork of those guys I had the pleasure of rowing with in high school, and that coxswain's voice still rings in my head. So when I think about the growth of the sport, it's pretty straightforward. I love rowing. I kind of love rowers. How many people can we give this to? How can we get this gift out there to more people? We have too many rowing deserts. And when I talk about rowing deserts, some of those are geographic, Last count, we have less than 50 race courses that can go 2 kilometers in the country. Pretty tough to say you're going to grow a sport massively when you have 50 venues to play at in the entire country, right? We also have demographic deserts. Our equipment, it costs money. Coaches should be compensated. Referees take support, right? All the things we do. I'm sure most of you got into the sport because of something about rowing, but probably add up your hours and you'll find yourself in a lot of board and committee meetings, wondering where the time went, but also you can support those rowers. That's what we're trying to do in the growth of the sports. I want to talk about a few aspects of that. In indoor rowing, we've hired a sport development director, focused primarily on indoor, coastal, both endurance and beach. Right now, a lot of attention to beach, which I'll go into. But in the indoor space, there's some exciting road ahead. And there's also some challenging opportunities that I want to talk about. One is World Rowing has gone to additional distances, standards, and relays for their World Championship. They're currently working with the Olympic Esports Games, which will happen in 2027 in Riyadh, for inclusion. If rowing is included in that, suddenly we're going to have an indoor national team. Suddenly we're going to have really exciting challenges to face to enter those disciplines. What we're doing on the indoor side as well at US Rowing is working on an additional slate of distances so that we can open the sport to more types of athletes. Everything from 100-meter Watts test, let's go for you 100-meter, big powerful people, and then the marathon distances, right? If we increase the range of indoor rowing events, we can see more people get the gift of rowing and sort of depart from only thinking of it as a training tool for traditional distances in rowing. In the coastal and beach space, there is so much excitement. If you want to see something really not exciting, I'll be racing myself next week in New Bedford. But last year, in the previous years, we've had at most 2 beach sprints regattas in the country, trials, and there's been one in Port Angeles for a couple of years. So just last year, we only had 2 events. This year, we had 6 in the country, right? That may seem like small potatoes, but it's a blossoming community. And we had the first ever youth national championships for this. And we thought, let's just make sure we do this safely. Let's see what happens. Well, 85 kids showed up on a beach in Sarasota. Only 5 had ever touched a coastal boat. And I can tell you that was some of the most exciting regatta experiences I've ever seen. They were bonding, supporting each other, carrying each other's boats. There's a certain closeness and camaraderie you can get in the beach community that's just a little bit different than what we see in classic. As that spreads, there's some great reasons for inclusion to believe this can be our future. One, it's shared equipment at regattas, so you only have to travel with the rowers themselves. 2, every place you train is its race course, so it makes it a lot easier to see growth and inclusion in those spaces. And I really hope that endurance, which has always been around, since the whalers took to their boats, right? As far as we go back, we put oars to the water. And in the endurance space, we hope it grows in proximity to the beach sprints. Looking at our own regattas, this year was pretty wild for us on the domestic side. Every one of our youth regattas had growth, every one of them. We averaged 3% growth in our events at every single youth regatta. Youth National Championships was a smashing success. And for the part I love, it was safer than ever before. I think we treated a total of 9 athletes for various ailments, which is like a 90% reduction in what happens when you have 4,000 athletes and 10,000 spectators. So I was really proud of that. Then we go to RowFest and we're going to a place that's held one skirmish of a regatta before. It's the first regatta, and suddenly we have 2,600 entries. And just for the fun of it, we threw an international regatta into the middle of it. All of that happening with, just some great experiences. So growth for the sport for me, just to really cap it, is let's get this into more people's hands. Let's have fun with this. Let's push out and let's get rid of those rowing deserts. One of the other things we've done is this is the 2nd year that we've had United We Row in place, which again is about breaking down these barriers and getting the gift of rowing to more people. This year, in our 2nd year, we supported 16 programs for a total of $80,000. And we want to say thank you to the leaders of the 2 endowments for United We Row, Youth Power 20, the Carol and Jack Bailas Cool Runnings Fund. Scholarship and discount and free memberships equal $260,000 this year for athletes and coaches and organizations. Again, it's hard to aspire to something you don't see. it's hard to get the benefit of something in your community that you're not aware exists. And I'm really excited about the work everyone at US Rowing and all of you out there in the sport are doing to really, give our gift of rowing to everyone we can. So I appreciate your time. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over now to Steve Pritzker and to Lauren McBride.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight and for being a part of this organization. My name is Steve Pritzker. I've been fortunate to have been on the board for the past 3.5 years. My day job is I'm Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer for the University of Virginia Athletics Department. Hope that I bring the perspective of an operations and financial background along with experience in the college space. I also started rowing in middle school. For those who know the movie Remember the Titans, it was T.C. Williams back in the day, and Herman Boone was actually my George Ed instructor. So had a number of sports and interesting experiences throughout my career. Coming from the nonprofit space, I could say that U.S. Rowing strives to follow best practices in the nonprofit world across finance, operations, and fundraising to serve our membership and staff. We've continued to focus on how to create a sustainable enterprise through a firm financial foundation, strong operational systems, and staff satisfaction, which in turn ensures the best support for our membership. Over the past few years, we've focused on streamlining operations and making them more efficient, as well as developing systems and technology. We hired a new Chief Financial Officer last year, Sarah May, who I think was racing back from vacation to get on the call. I don't know if she quite made it back or not. But are working towards more transparent financial management, including strong and stable cash reserves, as Amanda mentioned earlier, and an increased emphasis on fundraising. Our intention is to ensure a great experience for our members and our staff, and to make our interactions enjoyable and rewarding for all. I'll now hand it off to Lori McBride, who's our Chief Development Officer, to discuss some of the detail of the organization's operations. Thank you again.
Thanks, Steve. So to just give a brief recap on fundraising, we're currently 80% to our yearly fundraising goal, which is a little over 6 million. And all of this goes to funding our high performance program, United We Rows, row programs, and operating expenses. And I think it's important to note that donors have the ability to restrict their gifts to whatever areas they are most passionate about. This goal does not include, however, the amount that we receive from the USOPC. So that is in addition to, nor does it include different various endowment funds. And we've been really, really fortunate to receive 2 large endowment funds this year, both that provide grants. The disbursement of these grants for United We Row this year, that will be added to our operating budget. So we're in a really good place, and that's because of everyone on this call. Not only our, I think Kirsten and Amanda both mentioned, we've got 44 foundation trustees who help provide financial support, but our whole community pulls together to make sure that we can accomplish the goals that we need to from a fundraising standpoint. And that's making sure that our national team has the resources that they need to be successful, that we have grants and scholarships available in our United We Row program so that we can grow the sport, as Jenny mentioned. And really, it's all of you. So we are so grateful for our rowing community. To just, as Steve mentioned, Sarah May couldn't be on the call tonight, so I'm going to pinch hit and say a few things about our operational, kind of talking about our operations and finance. And I'll start with finance. And Steve mentioned that we finished 2024 with a surplus, which just shows the health of our organization. And I think the important thing is, if you can think of that surplus as a little bit of an emergency fund, as we would all do in our own personal finances. At the end of the month, whatever's left over, we have that. And that is really important because it helps sustain our organization. It allows us to take advantage of new opportunities, whether it's new technology to enhance membership experience or grassroots growth through coastal or other emerging disciplines. We have the available funds to be able to invest them strategically. If there's any other questions, I also would point, our annual report just came out today. So if you have questions about that, please, you can check out those extra details there. The other thing I'd like to address is some of the operations. We are, and Sarah May again is in charge of this area, and we're continuing to look at ways to improve internally as an organization and externally. Some of the things that we're looking at right now is creating new processes or updating current processes to leverage technology. An example of that, and I think Tom and Sarah, who are on this call, could probably explain this better than I can, but there was a new automated bid issuance and acceptance process, which made it much easier for teams to receive and claim their bids to youth nationals. So we're continuing to look at ways to make our operations much more efficient and cost effective. We regularly review service providers and evaluate performance and compare costs to make sure that we're confirming the necessity within the organization. And then finally, we're giving our internal members and staff an opportunity to provide feedback by through quarterly staff surveys. We want to make sure that we're listening both externally and internally to continue to maximize our organization's efficiency, to make sure the staff and people within the org are happy and having positive experiences and have a voice to make things better. I am now going to turn it over to Steve Serrallo, board member, and Chief Community Officer Jenny Trays.
Hello there, everyone. This is Steve Serrallo, and I am the elected director representing the Atlantic region, which goes along the coast from New Jersey and Pennsylvania down to South Carolina, as well as West Virginia, not along the coast there. And I'm going to talk about the L of U.S. Rowing Strategic Path Gold, and that L stands for lasting and well-defined member value. Our sport has some unique structural realities that are important to start off. And I just listing 5 of them here. Very specific, very critical safety requirements. Complex insurance demands. For many of us, widely shared use of facilities on land among multiple programs. And those facilities are often atop an imperfect land setup, an imperfect staging situation. I know that well as an active coach. At events, a very wide range of age levels and skill levels. And then lastly, a reality is that for most of us, our waterways are owned by the public, or they are very highly regulated, or both. And I would, in my comments for the next minute and a half or so, are that I'd like to make the case that for typical rowers and programs of all kinds, U.S. Rowing essentially exists to try to help bridge those realities. U.S. Rowing helps to build connections and security between spaces. This national community to which you and I belong sustains, grows, and connects my journey and your journey to the common journeys and interests of all of us. To take one example out of many, for juniors, U.S. Rowing directly creates really premier racing environments at regionals, nationals, RowFest, at properly insured, sanctioned regattas all throughout the year. For example, many head races. These thousands of rowers and coxswains race for up to 4 years, and then they go on to collegiate programs. And so U.S. Rowing's direct support of the junior environment, both scholastic and club, turns out to be indirect but powerful support for college programs. That's the kind of connection, that's the kind of bridging that U.S. Rowing does. And I'd suggest that in addition to that immediate bridge building work that U.S. Rowing does right now, that work is also the seed corn really of the future. U.S. Rowing is the bridge to the future development of the sport in emerging and growing and innovative disciplines like ocean rowing and beach sprints. Perhaps most significantly, I think U.S. Rowing connects us all to the national effort within the Olympic movement and to its fundamental principles of excellence, of respect, and of friendship. As an active coach, I've used that phrase and that triad, and more importantly, used its deep inner meaning for cultural impact on my team. I'm far from alone there. Our U.S. Rowing's broadest work is our collective strength as an American rowing community and its connection to the entire world. That's why the ongoing stakeholder engagement initiatives Amanda discussed have become a significant part of 2025's work. And these new communication lines and new committee work are ways that you can be a part of U.S. Rowing's ongoing long-term work. I'm going to pass us off to our Chief Community Officer, Jenny Trays, who's going to talk about some additional particulars of the L of GOLD, lasting and well-defined member value.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. And there will be a quiz at the end for which letter stands for what at the end of this. So, again, thank you all for being here. I'm Jenny Trays. If I haven't met you, I've seen many of you on the rowing forums that we hosted earlier this summer. So thank you again for being here tonight. I am a proud Bucknellian. I rowed for 4 years at Bucknell University, spent 10 years at Row New York here in New York City, and have been at US Rowing for 3.5 years now. My role was exclusively our inclusion programs and has recently expanded to include membership and learning and development. So I'm eager to learn and serve all of you. So I'll jump right to it. Instead of touting our achievements here, which Amanda spoke to some of them over the past year, I wanted to share some of what we've humbly learned over the last 9 months or so and the path that we're headed on in some cases. So first, safety. It's our #1 priority. Tom Rooks heads up safety and does a phenomenal job here. I'm always in awe of what he does day in and day out. It's our #1 priority, and I'm sure it is for all of you. We heard that you needed better tools, better guidelines, and practical solutions. And we also heard over the last 9 months that safe sport compliance is challenging. We have made some action in these areas and plan to do more. We have strengthened the safety committee and its operations, launched new partnerships, and we're putting final touches on our new safety videos that will be released in the next several weeks. When it comes to safe sport, as Amanda mentioned, we are mandated by Congress to have members complete this. Plus, we do believe that it keeps athletes safe, and that is really important. And we are currently having really productive dialogues with the Center for Safe Sport regarding language changes to help make this requirement easier for you, your athletic department, your schools, and your organizations. When it comes to competitions, we mentioned that we have Sarah McAuliffe on the call here. She's phenomenal at what she does as well. We heard that you want to compete in fun, high quality, and accessible events. Youth Nationals and RowFest 2025 were both unprecedented in terms of their attendance, and we hope to continue to trend that way. By being transparent, creative, innovative, and keeping athletes and coaches safer and more comfortable. Some examples of that include our new timing system, our new live stream system, announcers at our own regattas, ice baths to keep athletes cool, AC, and happy hours. So even as we face, like all of us in our day-to-day, rising costs across the country and a limited number of rowing venues across the US, we remain committed to delivering high-quality experiences for youth and rowers of all ages. When it comes to membership, so you know this well, whether you're an individual standard member or a plus member or an organizational member, these different membership tiers are not currently meeting the needs of all of our unique and important stakeholders. We had a record year in 2024 for membership, but we strive to do better. We're currently in the process, as we speak, of going through what we've heard over the last 9 months and looking into our membership offerings for 2026. We're specifically exploring seasonal individual memberships to accommodate scholastic athletes and bulk individual membership purchasing options for team leads. So we're going to assess feasibility, understand the insurance costs, and hope to deliver a few new options in the new year. Membership also includes our platform development. Someone on my new team, Meg Gaba, said this so well. She said, we're 90% a virtual national governing body. We see you at regattas, we see you at some conferences, but for the most part, you are interacting with us in these forums, and mostly via the platform, because that's the platform that we provide. We know how important this is for your team and for your smooth operations. In the past 3 years, our team has completed over 50 projects to enhance the user experience, the back end, the front end. We've launched the Launch, which is our learning management system. We've developed a racing history feature that tracks your competition history. And importantly, we've launched the athlete profile that allows athletes from anywhere to get on US Rowing's radar to put in their statistics, and we have made improvements to the coaching profile. As we look towards 2026, we want to make our platform even more user-friendly for all of you. Regatta sanctioning and operations. We heard that you need more support on accessing referees, communicating with regatta attendees, and answering the question, why sanction with US Rowing? We are formally addressing each of these. Some of the examples are working closely with the Ref Corps on recruitment, training, and evaluation of referees, bringing back the evaluation process. We completely removed the cost of sanctioning and issuing ensuring regattas that are on Regatta Central and using that platform. And we've created a chief endorsement so that chief referees can be identified more easily for regattas. When it comes to learning and development, Amanda mentioned that we can do better in terms of our collaboration and rollout of new coaching requirements and opportunities. There's definitely an opportunity to improve there. And this is top of mind for moving forward as we look to expand our offerings on the Launch and move toward more in-person conferences and regional clinics. Finally, I'm thrilled about this opportunity, which is our stakeholder engagement, Voices in Rowing. We heard that we need to be more accessible, closer to our members, listen to the challenges and opportunities you surface, and bring them into decision-making, and kind of be the driver of those opportunities. So we're building this out both formally and informally through rowing forums, which again, I mentioned I've seen many of you on this summer. We did 7 different rowing forums this summer. Surveys, the Masters survey is still live. I will go ahead and drop that in the chat. If you're connected to Masters Rowing in any way, we encourage you to fill that out. In-person opportunities like regional clinics, and I'm excited to announce for the first time that we have leadership groups launched. So I'll drop the Voices in Rowing site into the chat and you can check that out. But these are opportunities for members of the community to have leadership positions and work closely with the leaders on this call, the decision makers on this call, to lead their peers and be a real critical part of the future of rowing. So some examples of that include a group for regatta directors and leaders, scholastic rowing, collegiate rowing, and more. So I will drop that in the chat. I'm thrilled to finish out the gold here and introduce Josie. So Josie Verdonskott, please come to the floor.
Thank you, Jenny. I told Jenny that you shouldn't try to pronounce my last name, but she did it pretty well. Let's put it like that. So this is the D. Just for everybody to know, it's not us on the pictures. This is Liam Corrigan's Stroke of Dementia 4. And the D in gold stands for Drive of Excellence on the World Stage. It's our mission. If we look, what is our mission? It's to support our athletes on and off the water in their quest to win medals at championships, Olympics, Paralympics, and as an organization to amplify their stories and actually to inspire the community. From my point of view, my job is to build a system that we can be proud of and is sustainable. So I look upon myself more or less as an architect, only with one limitation in my assignment regarding the construction material. I can only use materials and products that are born in the USA. Maybe maybe it's better to look a little bit and to talk about the details of the aspects that are my concern, which is the Olympic and Paralympic team, the coastal rowing team, and the Pathways program. And when I talk about that, in general, I look at 3 pillars. And those are people, places, and program. If you look at the Olympic and Paralympic program, in many countries, athletes consider rowing or being an Olympian as a professional career. And that's not the same in the US, but that's not relevant because it's what it is. And I do think it's very important if we look at our athletes that we look at it in the full perspective, which means we have to look at their athletic, academic, professional, and social life. And looking at our high performance structure and system, one of our main priorities is to look at those aspects and to see where we can support our athletes. One of the things that we have upgraded is the amount of stipends that athletes can receive. We've started a program called Currents to support them in their search for jobs that are kind of compatible or can be used by them as a part-time occupation that also prepares them for the future. One thing that we have to look at is, as an athlete, if we want you to train that much, you need affordable housing. So all those things, together with looking at academics, which means there's graduates who are still in school and who have a program, which is a multi-year program. So we have to look, how is that compatible? And can we make a planning to bring you to LA? Because in the end, that's what we're looking for. That's the people. Talking about high performance in Olympic and Paralympic, looking at places, probably for the people that are currently at Mercer for the trials, you've seen that we've started with the extension of the boathouse, which is great. At the same time, we know that there's going to be a great facility in Sarasota. There is a great facility in Chula Vista that we are going to use. And in that way, together with having a fleet, thanks to Filippi, we've a pretty good organization right now in place, and we support it scientifically, which means not just the coaching, but we try with decent knowledge about physiology, technology to support the athletes to achieve their goals. Then about coastal rowing, people have mentioned it already a few times. Obviously it's hot, but not just it's hot, it's also fun. And it's a new way of looking at rowing. It, not just the format, the quick races, etc., but just the fact that it's very accessible. You don't need to bring your fleet. So what we did, we organized ID camps. We had a camp in preparation of the trials. And in the end, what are we trying to do? We try to create a bigger group, and also we try to bring infrastructure. So we've got an East Coast fleet, we've got a West Coast fleet, and basically what we try to do is to facilitate more people to participate in the program. And the program is run by currently Mark Correa, who basically is one of the best coaches in the world. And from our point of view, as an organization, we are investing in the athletes in the same way as before we did with Flatwater, or as we all still do with the Flatwater athletes, which means camps are funded, world championships will be funded. And in that way, there's 3 new Olympic events. And I mean, why not? 1 or 2 medals would be great. 3 would be better. Then finally, about the Pathways program, nothing can happen without Pathways. And obviously, most of you have to do with Pathways, as in you are putting all your time in an athlete, and some of them have dreams. And what we need to do as an organization is focus on how to identify, how to communicate about that. So we've invested in our structure, and we try to do not just look at ERG scores, but also look at progress, look at individual skills. So we focus now on small boat skills. We request people, it's something that we are not good enough at it right now, but we need to incentivize personal development. And one of those things is learning to row in small boats. And probably we have to talk with the community in how could we do that, because most of you have a model where obviously it doesn't really make sense to have, if you've got 100 kids, to put them all in a single. Anyway, we need to find solutions for that, and we need your help for that. And the places, well, thanks to Hudson, we've got a great fleet for our camps in Oklahoma City. We've got a great fleet in Chula Vista for under 23 and under 19. And in that way, I think slowly, but certainly we are making steps into the right direction. And I want to finish off with a quote, because I got a letter of a rower this year for under 23 as under 19. We have prioritized the 4s and not the 8. Why? Well, we want to challenge people. So some people think, hey, probably it's not always as positive as it sounds, because then you've got under 23 women's 8, they get a silver, and then the 4, which was our priority boat, they take a 5th place. And I think it's just like we are challenging people at their own level. And I was very grateful that I got this letter back from one of the athletes. Thank you so much for reaching out. I had an amazing experience this summer, and while our goal was to medal, I'm proud of the growth of our boat and the experience we all gained. It was an honor representing the USA, and I hopefully will be back next spring. Have a great rest of your summer. It's a Texas athlete. She goes back to her school, and she brings back a positive experience. Well, that's my summary about high performance. And I pass it over to Jenny, who is going to start the Q&A round.
Thanks so much, Josie. Verdonk Scott. So now we would love to hear from more of you. We're working on a few of the Q&A questions that came through. I would speak to, I'm going to say answering this one. We got a question, which hopefully you can see now, about the Masters rowers and how they fit into the vision discussed today. And as someone who works closely on membership now, we have a Masters working group that if you click on the link, Voices in Rowing and the leadership group, you will see that we're currently adding to our Masters working group. We also have a subcommittee of our Emerging Leaders Council that's focused on Masters rowing. But how this fits in is it's an important stakeholder group. We are going to take the data that we've heard from these forums that we did this summer from our Masters survey and develop a intentional plan this fall around how we best serve Masters rowers, whether that's through the content that we provide, learning and development opportunities, social events, working really closely with our competition team on regattas. So we are in the kind of information gathering phase, and we'll quickly go into here's our plan, which will be released to membership. Do people want to add more questions to this? Let's see. Great. I know that we got one question around venues. Sarah, did you want to speak to that live? Or did you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. I can put it in the chat too. So the question was specifically, let me read it out loud. Will US Rowing look at alternative venues to Sarasota for the US Rowing Youth National Championships? And there are some more details underneath it. So just speaking more broadly, as Tom mentioned, we do as a sport have limited courses in the US across the board. And I would say with those 50 or so courses that do already exist, a great majority of them don't fit the needs for the quantity of athletes we have at youth nationals. And then on top of that, we have other criteria, or the cities and visitors bureaus have other criteria that limit us to go there. So for example, I get a lot of questions of, let's bring youth nationals to Lake Natoma. And I love Lake Natoma. It's a fantastic venue. Their LOC is absolutely fantastic there. I think I saw Dee Dee on the call, so shout out to Dee Dee Birch for that one. But one of the problems that we've run into is the Visitors Bureau has communicated with us. The local groups have communicated that anything after May, we are not allowed to bring a rowing event there because of the pleasure boat traffic that comes onto the waterway. So things like that come up at a lot of venues that we do work with, especially in the West Coast, because pleasure boating is such a revenue stream for them. But one example of just the work that we've been doing to grow venues in the US is the Ypsilanti Ann Arbor course at Ford Lake Park that we use for RowFest too. That park was essentially, it's where EMU rows, so it's always been populated with rowing. But basically, the relationship started 2 years ago where they were interested in building a course. And we stayed in touch with them and said, like, let's go big. You have a lot of land space, a lot of water space, and let's bring our RowFest National Championship there to not only, allow our members to have easier access from coast to coast to a regatta, but then also spark interest in the sport of rowing for the Ypsilanti community, which we had a couple learn to rows. There were probably about 50 athletes that came out and got to see the sport new because of the event was there as well. Coming back to the youth national piece of it, there's no doubt it is definitely hot. We know that it is hot in June in Sarasota there. What's also true is there's no venue in the country that mimics that level of safety and infrastructure that we can use with the quantity of athletes that we bring in. So at the top of the tower, there's the Hawkeye landing and there's the 5th floor. Tom and I and a couple other coworkers are literally working off of multiple video camera screens, looking at weather, pulling up all weather apps, and just constantly monitoring exactly where each boat is on the course at all times, seeing how close and far the weather is coming in, so what our evacuation plans are at any specific minute, and communicating that with our chief and deputy referees as well. So Youth Nationals, it works really well for us for the quantity of athletes and spectators we bring in because we have the infrastructure to help assess to make sure it's safe. What's true on top of that is we have increased the level of shade. We doubled, if not tripled it from this year to the year prior. And then as Tom mentioned, that clearly showed our decrease in athletes that we needed to treat. So we've added a couple more just air conditioning units and structures that we can keep everybody safe, but continuing to do more as much as humanly possible.
Thanks, Sarah. And thank you for the question. Moving on to a different question here. This one's for Tom Rooks. Are there any trends in the area of insurance of concern?
Yeah, so there's a couple things on the sort of horizon. When we go into renewal, which we cannot start very early because you're still facing risks until the end of the year, essentially. So at the end of the year, we go into the renewal process. We pitch our program out to literally the world of insurance. I'll be on a call with London. It'll have 20 different insurers on there, and we'll be going through here's the year we've had. Here's what we're doing. Here's what's going on. Here's what we see coming. Here's what's on our books that could be a problem down the road. I feel pretty good right now. Again, tomorrow's next decision by a rower could change everything. Beach sprints coming more online is going to become more of a specific niche concern. The big thing they like to ask us is, okay, so you don't control what may happen tomorrow, but like, what are you doing? This year, we've had a really good year in terms of the implementation of the heat safety guidelines. and the impact that's already had on our own events. So we created, in response to our members last summer saying, you should have these, and us saying, you're right. We worked really hard to develop the heat safety guidelines, and we've implemented them. We put the hard full stops in those on ourselves this year because I wanted to see the impact to us of these standards before we said, now you go, please follow these, lock, stock, and barrel. So far, it's really led to positive outcomes. The other thing I would say is the good news is compared to 30 years ago, we're sculling, right? Like America's a nation that sculls now. Challenge is we don't come up the ranks often teaching it in terms of the responsibilities in the way we would parallel to our coxswains. So if there's one trend line you see that could create real harm for us in the sport, I would say it's, sculling boats specifically, if I'm going to be really honest, masters quads. You have a lot of speed. We sometimes don't have the range of visibility we maybe once did, or we haven't been trained specifically to be responsible for the vessel. So now we have a very fast boat that's very heavy that can plow into things. So in response to seeing an uptick in those cases in our incident reporting system, this year, Margot Zalcon and Safety Committee really worked hard and put out an uncoxed boats sort of steering manual, how to teach proper management of that. So the good news is where I'm seeing risks, we are getting ahead of them to date. And it's a sobering number, but it's the number many of you have heard me say I wake up to. We were fortunate to have 0 deaths in the sport in 2024, which was new to us. And so far in 2025, thanks to all of your good work, that's where we remain. And, God willing, may it stay so, right? So going into this insurance, I think, I'm not scared right now, except of the unknown that can happen between now and November. The only other thing I would say is that topic is a perfect example of how US Rowing supports the sport, right? So last year we had a really good year with insurance, cutting our bill down significantly. The immediate give back was probably over $100,000 in saved expenses and insuring regattas for $0, right? Now, if you want to spread a sport, there's a lot of teams that like to dip their toe in the water. Can we hold a regatta? Let's try. Well, if you're facing a multi-$1,000 cost just for seeing if it works, that's pretty rough. So if we can keep the insurance in check, my hope is it helps sort of the grassroots growth so we can see, more spread of events. I think, Jenny, did you also have a question about referees?
Yes, there's a question about referees that is,
Yeah.
what can be done to help referees feel more appreciated and valued? They do an incredible job, which we agree with, and sacrifice
Yeah.
a lot to be able to make regattas safer and fairer.
Yeah, I think this is where I would say in the last 5 years, I think there's a sea change that is happening and needs to happen, similar to what we're seeing with coaching, right? We have a long tradition in the country of the volunteer coach, the beloved history teacher who, gives up all their family dinners for 20 years to coach the sport. But that martyrdom that can create, right, of missing, makes it very hard for us to find coaches. I mean, I hear from you guys all the time. We can't, there are no coaches. How do I find a coach? And we talk about compensation and we talk about reasonable working hours. I think the challenge for the referees is they have chosen to, and we have leveraged their love of the sport to a pretty deep end of, I work closely with these refs and I'm blown away by their resilience. I don't have it. I don't think I could be a really busy active ref with the way that we work our refs. The least we can do is make that not martyrdom. Last year the referee committee had a subcommittee that had created a compensation study. And last year we put that into our regatta sanctioning process. And I heard from dozens of regattas, our refs have always seemed happy with a plate of barbecue and a t-shirt, but we're happy to give them a stipend so that it's not coming at a loss to them to give back to the sport. I think that's really critical. We think there's always more to do. Some regions have different needs. Some refs in some regions have to drive 4 hours to every regatta they go to. Others can hop on the tee and be there in 20 minutes, right? We think it's really interesting as we move forward to respectfully listen to the refs and what their needs are so that we have a healthy stasis, right? We can't have so few referees, we can't run regattas safely. Like there's no path to growth there. As far as acknowledgement of the referees, I think last year we created a working group. I and some others and the referees themselves have posed some pretty serious questions about the future of the core. What's our resilience? What's our ability to endure on the path we're on? The answers to those questions were reflected in the overhaul of the referee corps, going from assistant and fully licensed to level 1, level 2, level 3. And within the level 1, at the request of the referees, lowering the age requirement from 22 to 18, lowering that, making it, if you can referee many sports when you're a teenager in certain aspects, we're not saying we're looking for the next 18 years and one day chief referee for the head of the Charles, but why can't we find more refs earlier in the sport, support them, and make it something that's a comfortable part of their lives? I think that's pretty important. I think evaluations are important. I think awards are important. I've tried to do a better job with that this year, and I think with the alignment of the referees now with the senior director of programs, Sarah McAuliffe, I think we're going to continue to see better service for them as we go. But again, I'd rather have proof points to tell you than hope. So.
Thank you, Tom.
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna go back to Sarah McAuliffe. Speaking of, Sarah, we have a question from Paul Bloom. Sarah mentioned the Ford Lake Park venue. Can we expect that we might see major regattas more frequently scheduled here rather than rotating between venues? Our club's request for a few years now is that summer regattas maintain the same venue to make planning easier and more predictable.
I absolutely love this question because agreed completely with the second half of that sentence of can we go back to the same? It also makes my life significantly easier too. So I agree with you, Paul. The very short answer to this is yes, we will be going back to Ford Lake in some capacity in the near future. Can't confirm exactly when yet and for what, but I see this being a venue that is in our somewhat regular rotation. We received a lot of really positive feedback from our members about the venue. And then also while I was there at RowFest, there were a whole slew of other regatta directors who are asking me of like, would they be interested in us bringing X here? I see some of you on the call. So it's very exciting to just see a venue like really pop up quickly and the whole rowing world's getting excited about it. And our production team did a great job of really like zoning in and showing that on the live stream as well. To further answer, just like, will we go, I'll speak more broadly, like to one venue over multiple years. The answer is yes, but there's a couple buts with it. The first, one of the goals of RowFest was to continue to grow rowing in multiple different parts of the country. So while Youth Nationals is, we've historically been at Sarasota because of what I previously mentioned with quantity of athletes and infrastructure, RowFest brings a different twist to it where the intent of RowFest is to bring in new race distances, giving people many opportunities to get down the course, potentially rowing with new athletes and new boat classes, etc. So with that, we can take a venue that sometimes might not be fully 2,000 meters, or sometimes, we'll have, like we did this year, 2 days of 2,000 meter racing, 2 days of 1K racing for our youth and open populations. And then of course our masters athletes race the full 1K too. But the intent is to be a little bit more flexible and kind of adopt the nature of the venue rather than saying like RowFest must be XYZ and we need to now find a body of water and piece of land that really fits that mold too. So with the beauty of that, like the goal is as we continue to grow relationships with future rowing venues out there, like using RowFest to help grow it in that area to become a bigger and better national championship venue for not only for US rowing, but other regattas out there too, year over year. So like I said, I look forward to going back to Ford Lake sooner rather than later. But I do hope that we'll continue to cycle through just so we can increase the growth across the US as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Okay, going back to Paul's other question about the growth of the sport. Growth of the sport has been incredible over the decades I've been involved. How does US Rowing quantify and measure the efficacy of its programs in growing the popularity and adoption of rowing? Do you have a top-level annual goal for the number of rowers learning to row and number of rowing programs added or something similar? Amanda, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. That's a fun question. We do a lot of goal setting and tracking. It would be fun to share our OKRs, but that would take another evening. But that's a good question. We don't track, and unless someone wants to jump in and tell me that maybe I'm wrong about that, but the number of people who go through Learn to Row programs, which are hosted around the country by different clubs and organizations. But we do have a new Learn to Row membership, so I think that's a step in the right direction, and could be interesting to try to get feedback on how many people go through. I don't know that clubs actually track their numbers either, but something to look into. In terms of individual growth, we don't have a goal for that per se, and a number we want to hit each year. Maybe that's something we should think about for our 28 strategic plan and planning. But we see about 1,500 to 3,000 new individual members a year, keeping in mind over the last 3 years that in 2021 we were coming back from COVID, where of course everyone saw a major dip. So we're heading in the right direction. I think what we're more focused on right now is looking a little bit more at specialties within rowing programs, within rowing clubs as partners, and so trying to support them, for instance, if they have adaptive programs, if they're starting coastal beach sprints, if they have veterans programs. We have full-time staff who are really, their entire jobs are making sure that our partner organizations, clubs, member organizations rather, have that support and expertise, equipment support, coaching, program management, et cetera. So, but that's a really good suggestion. I actually just took a note that we should talk about that for our 28 goals. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. So one question we have, I think this is either for Sarah or Tom, regarding subsidizing trailer costs for teams traveling cross country for youth nationals or RowFest. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can touch on it. It's a good point. We've talked about this with a whole group of Southwest coaches at length over the past couple years too. The difficulty of it is for US Rowing to jump in and help subsidize travel for it is next to impossible for us to find an equation that is fair across the board and meets each individual club's needs who's hopping on that trailer too, just because of like the individual driver, where are they from? How many seats is each team putting on the boat? Are teams renting boats, etc.? Exactly how many miles is everyone going? So there's just a lot of variables in there that make it difficult for us to effectively compensate people in a way that is also workable for us across the board too. So other ways that we've kind of pivoted and tried to help, or we've talked about help funding that more so, is like working with an airline to see what we can do. And I know there has been like the partnership with the USOPC in the past, and some Southwest teams have used that. But that's been an area where it's a little bit more scalable than for us to say the dollars that would effectively make a change to your all's bottom line when trailering from Southwest down to Florida. Other areas that are not specifically trailering costs, but like I just got off a call the other day with someone from the Southwest talking about like an idea of bringing more US Rowing owned regattas to the Southwest region. Like, is there something that we could create to create a summer racing series for the West Coast? That's a much, much bigger question, and making sure that there is a weekend in time and it's really accommodating what you all are looking for. But the specific want was coming from a place of like, we feel that on the East Coast, there's a million regattas to go through the summer. We're looking for something that we can pop to that's a couple-hour drive rather than a flight away. And what I also shared in response to that is, well, lucky enough, Beach Sprints is also coming, and the West Coast is going to be, man, quite the hub for exactly that. And I know, Tom, not to put you out there, but Tom's hitting the West Coast soon too, and I know is eager to have those conversations with some of the West Coasters. So I understand where you're coming on the trailer end of things, but I think that those are some of the other areas that we're really talking about that we can be more effective in addressing like the bottom line as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. This one's for me, I think. It was previously mentioned about having in-person coaching conferences, either in a large format or regional. Is there anything officially planned? I think in-person conversation and conferences are much more impactful in educating all coaches, old and new, rather than Zoom. I would say, Zach, that we completely agree. First, I think, and as I mentioned, I'm new to this role, so I'm really excited to be working with the learning and development team, Chris Furlow and Flavia. So we want to be more present at existing conferences. So there are some phenomenal conferences out there already. We want to work with them and help support those that already exist. On that note, we do have coaching scholarships if there are coaches out there who need support to attend those conferences. And then we're looking into both the clinics that you mentioned, regional clinics that will be more hands-on. So think rigging, actually getting out in a boat, spending some time shoulder to shoulder, learning new techniques and ways to do things that are hands-on, not so much in the classroom, but then also looking and exploring ways to make the RoCon or like the larger scale conference more fiscally responsible and possible. We valued that so much to see everyone in person and the social aspects, the learning aspects. So we are looking into how we can make that happen again. And we don't have any set plans to answer your concrete question, but we hope to be launching things very soon. So stay tuned. And if
Jenny,
you have feedback, feel free to reach out.
If I could add to that, Jenny, just a couple of quick things. Rowers Choice did a takeover Boathouse Row coaches conference a couple of years ago. I thought was fantastic. Even though it led to me swimming in the Schuylkill for an hour and a half, teaching person in the water recovery, it strengthened my spirit, right? One of the reasons I bring that up is what Jenny's talking about is, in training, in education is one thing, but in training, you can either sort of lean on the knowledge base or the performance base, right? And one of the things I think our coaches specifically, and a lot of people, Boathouses, are looking for is performance-based training. So one of the models we're looking at is things where you come away with a tangible outcome. So we say it's a rigging class. It's not 8 PowerPoints on a beautiful chart of what happened in, Worlds in 1988. It's let's get your hands on those oar locks. Let's get your hands on that pitch meter. Let's rig this boat. To that effect, this year, one of my proudest successes in ours at US Rowing was becoming an official recreational boating safety partner with the United States Coast Guard. We're one of only about 22 organizations that has met that standard for them, including like NOAA, US Boating, US Boat, Towboat US, Power Squadron. Very happy about that. What that means for you is we're currently developing a safety sort of training day model. I'd really like to help encourage before, typically in August or for master's programs, whenever you go back on the water in the spring, to have a safety day before you get back to it that includes performance-based training, right? Do we know our coach can recover somebody in the water, right? It's great to talk about it. It's great to say you're confident you would be able to do it, but I can assure you, I've been surprised before, even a person that had a career in it, unless you've done it recently, you haven't done it. So I would be, very, very excited if we can sort of push that out for you guys, that we create a more localized, hands-on experience to give you a better sort of coaching and professional safety development. So, thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. And please feel free to reach out if you have ideas around that or your club wants to host us for those regional clinics. Great. Tom, I think you'd be best suited to answer this one. Are there plans to allow integration of US Rowing waivers and documents as well as safe sport certifications with iCrew? This would allow a club looking at a single piece of software rather than multiple platforms. And I know this is something that we are actively about to launch in terms of assessing all of our software and going, just reviewing it and making sure that we're kind of delivering the best platform that we can. But do you want to add to that at all?
Sure. There are some areas that we've made some progress in this space. For example, the Julian Wolf Referee College is migrating to the launch. We have a really nice, robust education platform, and if we can meet all the needs for the referees, so it's one less password, one less membership, one less click path to know, we think that's a positive thing. As far as membership and other aspects of rowing club management, we're currently looking at and surveying various platforms. That's there's some pretty good solid work that's happening in that space. But again, we'll announce more of a plan when we can. And if we ever get to a place where there's one wonderful software platform that can do all the things our members need, of course, we would find a way to work with that.
Excellent. Thank you. We also have some ideas coming in, which are great, and we are noting them. So thank you for that. I know we are coming up on time. So if anyone has a burning question, feel free to drop it in the chat. Otherwise, we're just so grateful to have you here. And please continue the conversation beyond this meeting. Check out the leadership groups and the survey. You have our emails, and we really do want to work with you to move things forward. But let me see if there's any more questions here. Excellent. Well, thank you again and enjoy the rest of your evening. Happy rowing
Thanks.
this
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.